Today we're comparing the ASICS Gel Kayano 33 with the Gel Kayano 32. They are now completely different shoes, whether you want to use them for walking or running. I'm going to break down the key features in them and also talk about how they might affect medical conditions. So first of all, let's look at the changes in the specifications. In the Kayano 33, we've got 39mm in the rear foot of cushioning, 31 in the forefoot, giving you an 8mm drop and coming in at 298 grams. Only slightly different than what we had in the 32, which was 40mm in the rear foot, 32 in the forefoot. So the same drop, just a millimeter difference of less cushioning in the 33, and the 32 was roughly 2 grams heavier. They both come in a normal fit, a wide and an extra wide, but here's where the differences really start to appear. So the cushioning is completely different overall. In the Model 32, we had the FF Blast Plus Eco cushioning with pure gel in the heel. Now that felt really soft, plush when you're walking around in it, but when you went to run in it, it was a little bit more fun overall, and combined with the Series 31, it was just a really nice stability shoe to run in for those longer miles or for those recovery miles. In contrast to that, in the 33, we now have a dual midsole. So on top of it, we have the FF Blast Max cushioning, and those of you familiar with ASICS will know that that's what we saw in the Nova Blast series and also the Glide Ride Max series. Then underneath that, we have the FF Blast Plus cushioning. So the FF Blast Max is a little bit more energetic, snappy and firmer. The FF Blast Plus is a little bit softer, more pillow-like. And I'll talk about how that affects performance when walking or running. But the stability systems are just completely different now as well. Historically, we had the 4D guidance system in the Gel Kayano 32. And that was roughly broken down into sidewalls on the outside, and inside around the heel, they come up, wrap around the heel, helping to control pronation moments. Usually coupled up with a really rigid heel counter, and that wraps around your ankle, helping to control your ankle when you initiate contact with the ground. Then you've got a broad base, sole flare, which is where the sole comes out wider than where your foot sits in the shoe, and then a little 4D guidance tab, which is a denser form of cushioning that provides some form of arch support. Well, that's all gone now, and we now have a new FluidSupport system in the Kayano 33, and it's just a completely different story altogether. So first of all, you've got that two different types of cushioning, but it doesn't stop there because you have different volumes of cushioning in the heel trying to provide support. So on the inside of the shoe, what we have is more of the FF Blast Plus cushioning, less of the Blast Max. On the opposite side, we have less FF Blast Plus cushioning, and that in turn creates a slight tilt in the shoe, and a rough measurement gives you 5 centimeters of cushioning on the inside of the shoe, 4 centimeters on the outside. Now I'm sure Run Repeat will give you a more specific measurement when they cut it open, but what that results in is this tilt of your foot when it sits inside the shoe. Now we have seen that in other models like the New Balance 860 series, and that just places your foot towards the outside, which is really beneficial for helping to control pronation moments or offloading the inside of your ankle or your foot. But the result of that is it overloads or increases the amount of force through the outer aspect of your ankle. So if you have a history of perineal issues or a history of lateral ankle instability, it's something to really be aware of with this. Now underneath the shoe, we talk about a broad base giving you more contact with the ground and therefore making the shoe more stable. Well, rough measurements show that the heel is roughly a centimeter narrower in the 33 than in the 32. Midfoot is roughly the same and the forefoot is roughly the same. So we have less ground contact points on the heel in the 33 than in the 32. And the geometry of the shoe on the 33 is completely different on the heel, and I'm going to talk about how that transitions your foot from the back to the front when you're walking or running. But I just want to touch on the midfoot because we no longer have that 4D guidance tab, which is that denser foam on the inside, and you can see we have more of the FF Blast Max cushioning on the top layer compared to what we have on the outside. That doesn't do as good a job as the 4D guidance system in trying to provide support to the midfoot. And what I found is that you have a relatively supportive heel that's tilted outwards, and then as my foot moves naturally inward, it doesn't have the same level of support towards the midfoot. So it just didn't feel quite right when it comes to supporting from the heel through to the midfoot, whereas it was so smooth on the 32. And then as we move on to that heel bevel and the geometry of the shoe, without getting too nerdy about this, we essentially have a different angle at the back of the heel, both if you look from the side view, but also from the rear itself. And the important thing to consider here is when you initiate contact with the ground, what happens to the cushioning. Now with the 32, we had really soft cushioning on that outer aspect of the heel, which is where most people strike. And that means it absorbs impact and vibration and helps to transition you nicely from the back towards the midfoot. it's really firm on the 33. And that means that you get a clunkier landing, so it just doesn't feel very smooth when you're running, especially when you try to pick up the pace. So you have a clunkier heel and you have a slightly less aggressive forefoot rocker compared to the 32. Now, having a more aggressive forefoot rocker helps to push off when you're running or when you're walking, and it reduces the pressure that you need or the effort that you need through the forefoot and also through the ankle joint. So the more aggressive a rocker is in a shoe, the less the calf and the ankle have to work. Demand from elsewhere, which is usually higher up the leg, but it just influences how the shoe feels and how it moves. Before we touch on the performances of the shoe, just on top of the shoe, because I know I had a lot of questions in our original review of the 33, personally, it feels slightly wider in the 33 around the ball of the foot, and it doesn't feel like it tapers as early in the toe box either. So maybe a little bit wider for those of you who are asking, and the fit on the midfoot and the heel feels very similar between the two shoes. Then when it comes to medical conditions, well, those of you who used it for ball of foot conditions, big toe arthritis, I think you're probably going to be pretty safe still in the 33. Those of you who use it for stretch type plantar fasciitis and for compression type plantar fasciitis, I don't think you're going to get that smooth transition, that softer feel underneath your heel and the arch that you got in the 32. So just a word of caution, maybe try it in store to see how it feels if you are someone who experiences sensitivity around those areas. Now let's talk about performance. Now we had a very versatile shoe in the Kayano 32. It was one of the most popular stability walking shoes and stability shoes for standing all day. With the 33, I think that's probably still going to be the case. I don't think most people will notice a massive difference when it comes to walking and standing. Yes, some people who enjoy the arch support will miss it in the 33, but there's also some people out there that don't like having an arch support pushing up into their foot, so they like a less intrusive form of stability shoe, and they'll enjoy the 33. So it still works well as a walking shoe, but when it comes to running, they're just so different right now. The 32 is really smooth, transitions really nicely, and that makes it quite a fun stability shoe to run in. Whether you're doing easy paces up to marathon distance, this is a really steady shoe. It can work as a recovery shoe, and certainly for me, if I get a little bit sensitive in my tib posts, I tend to run in the Kayano 32 until it settles down a little bit. That won't be the case with the 33. It feels really clunky from the back to the front of the shoe, mainly due to the dual blend midsole and to the heel geometry of the shoe. It's a real shame, as I think the 32 was one of the more popular shoes on the market. So I think with the 32, I'm going to hold on to that and use that for the same purposes of recovery runs. And I'm not sure, for me, it's worthwhile upgrading to the 33. But like I said before, some people out there I think will prefer it. But honestly, the majority of the population, I'd love to know in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on the upgrade? What are you going to do with it? And as always, if you're new to the channel or you watch regularly, please consider subscribing, as it does make a massive difference to us. Thank you very much for watching.